Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place to another, but sometimes can be really difficult. It comes in a few different types, and it is important to know when to use which type. Communication in which the sender uses words, whether spoken or written, to transmit the message to the receiver is known as verbal communication. It is the most effective form of communication that leads to the rapid interchange of information and feedback. There are fewer chances of misunderstanding as the communication between parties is clear. Verbal communication can be done in two ways. Oral, like face-to-face communication, lectures, phone calls, seminars, and so on. Written communication, such as letters, email, and so on. There are two types of communication. They are formal communication, in which the sender follows a predefined channel to transmit the information to the receiver, and informal communication, in which the sender does not follow any predefined channels to transmit the information. Nonverbal communication is based on the understanding of the parties to communicate, as the transmission of messages from the sender to receiver is wordless. Nonverbal communication complements verbal communication. The types of nonverbal communication are chronemics. The use of time in communication is chronemics, which speaks about the personality of the sender or the receiver, for example, the speed of speech and so on. Vocalics. The volume, tone of voice and pitch used by the sender for communicating a message to the receiver is known as vocalics or paralanguage. Haptics. The use of touch in communication is the expression of feelings and emotions. Kinesics. It is the study of the body language of a person, for example, gestures, posture, facial expressions, and so on. Proxemics. The distance maintained by a person while communicating with others. It communicates about the relationship of the person with others, for example, intimate, personal, social, and public. Artifacts. The appearance of a person speaks about his personality, for example, by the way of clothing, carrying jewelry, and other lifestyle choices. This kind of communication is known as artifactual communication. Body language is a type of nonverbal communication in which physical behavior, as opposed to words, are used to express or convey information. Such behavior includes facial expressions, body posture, gestures, eye movement, touch, and the use of space. We need to consider how wider contextual factors influence the communications we have with others. Power. The relationship between communication and power is strong. A command of language combined with confidence in verbal and non-verbal communication can be a powerful tool in forming networks and building relationships. In our work, we may nurture communication skills because we believe them to be key life skills that young people should develop in order to progress in their own personal or social development goals. As practitioners, we start from a position of elevated power when we work with young people. We are often the initiators of communication and the guardians of communication rules. For instance, we will usually be the first to proactively engage with young people, and we may insist that they do not use language that we determine to be unacceptable. At the point of our first encounter with young people, they are likely to be very experienced in hearing how adults talk to and about them, but limited their capacity to have a powerful voice of their own. Therefore, youth workers attempt to redress power imbalances through empowering, a participatory practice that seeks to reposition young people as participants and citizens, better equipped to communicate their needs and make decisions. Language. Language is the means through which most communication happens and is therefore the indicator of power. Many areas of our life and work demonstrate the interconnections between power and language. Professionals, for example, have their own systems of shared language that mark them out as experts in particular fields and exclude those on the outside. Picture the scene of the doctor who describes to the patient they might have a tension type, cluster, or other trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. You and I might refer to this as a headache. History. Every communication we have with young people and others comes on the back of previous communication experiences. Understanding the personal biography of young people enables us to use communication strategies that connect with the individual context of young people's lives. For example, we might avoid extolling the virtues of a university education if a young person chose to leave university due to disappointment. We may never ask whether a young man has a girlfriend, since we would not make the assumption that the young man is heterosexual. Good communication is a process. We have established that all communication can be linked to power and that the language we use reflects this. If we allow power to provide a negative influence on our communication, this forms a block between us and the young people we seek to work with. Communication can be empowering. It can enable young people to come to voice, particularly where young people feel marginalized or excluded. We should avoid various roadblocks that can reinforce the powerful role of authority over young people. These are ordering and or commanding, warning and or threatening, moralizing and or preaching, advising and or giving solutions, persuading with logic, judging and or blaming, praising and or agreeing, name calling and or ridiculing, analyzing and or diagnosing, reassuring and or sympathizing, probing and or questioning, diverting and or sarcasm. You may say some of these have their place, and in a positive sense, young people may sometimes look to us to provide praise and agreement or to help analyze a problem they might be facing. What we should avoid at all costs is the automatic response where we reach into our own experience path to provide a ready-made solution to some of the challenges that young people face.